A man leads a bear cub along a busy Moscow street in the 1950s. In the background are Soviet buses and cars. Most likely the bear belongs to a trainer or a circus, a real scene that seems impossible today. The photo shows mysterious moving rocks in Death Valley, California. The stones seem to crawl along the ground by themselves, leaving clear footprints. In fact, they move because of a thin layer of ice and wind, without human intervention, an amazing but completely natural phenomenon. The photo shows a parade platform with the slogan from the Bible, "Use a little wine for your stomach," 1 Timothy 5:23. New York, 1921. People are protesting against prohibition in the United States, using a religious quote as an argument. Costumes, grapes, and smiles create a festive atmosphere against the backdrop of the struggle for personal freedoms. Children pose with giant watermelons, early 20th century USA. The photo shows rare fruits from local farms, most likely grown as part of an agricultural exhibition or experiment. Such pictures were often published in newspapers as proof of the fertility of the American soil. In the photo, a woman from the early 20th century bites into a huge piece of meat right in the kitchen with a smile. The scene is not staged. Judging by the pot and the setting, she had just finished cooking and did not wait for the guests. A child riding a hippopotamus, early 20th century, probably a zoo in the USA. Back then, safety was perceived differently. Even the most dangerous animals could be part of the attraction. Behemoth seems calm, but today such a scene would cause shock. The photo shows Washington, 1918. A one-legged man jumps over a rope on roller skates. Despite having a prosthetic leg, he retains balance and agility, striking passers-by. The picture was taken at a time when many returned from the First World War with injuries. The photo shows Winston Churchill with a cigar in his mouth and a Thompson submachine gun in his hands. Great Britain, the 1940s. Churchill visits the troops during the Second World War. The combination of elegant suit, bowler hat, and weapon became a symbol of his determination, a politician ready for battle. A rare shot of escaping from a burning building in Lisbon, Portugal in the 1960s. People, without waiting for help, form a human chain, descending from the top floor on a construction tarp. The sign says Radio Lux, a radio equipment store. This is a real event, not a production. The picture made the headlines, becoming a symbol of desperate courage and mutual help at a critical moment. Soldiers perform an impromptu acrobatic stunt in an army camp, early 20th century. Time off duty, tents in the background, and laughter are a reminder that even during the war years, there was a place for human joy and friendship. Rare footage of tests of the Fulton Skyhook evacuation system, 1950s. A man is picked up from the ground at full speed by an airplane with a hook hooking a cable. The system was used by the CIA and the U.S. Air Force to secretly extract agents or supplies from enemy territory. There is a burning object in the background, probably part of the exercise. Real technology, later shown in the James Bond movie. 1950s, USA. A man is reading a book with a defiant title, How to Pick Up Frivolous Women, while wearing a strange reading mask that covers his face from prying eyes. Back then, such accessories were advertised as a way of deep concentration. Vietnam, late 1960s. American soldiers on the front line dance with a guest artist during a concert program. Such shows were organized to boost morale. Girls from the USO, Army Support Organization, performed right on military bases. 1920s, USA. Boys participate in a pie, eating contest without using their hands, a popular pastime at fairs and summer camps. The winner is the one who quickly fits his face into the dessert. USA, early 1980s. A row of Pac-Man and Ms. Pac-Man slot machines in the arcade room. The players are completely immersed in the process. One even leaned with his head inside the slot machine. This is the dawn of the arcade era, when pixel heroes gathered crowds, and the halls became a cultural center for young people, a real addiction to 8-bit excitement. The photo shows the lights of St. Elmo, a rare atmospheric phenomenon. Glowing balls appear on sharp objects at high voltage in the air, most often during thunderstorms or storms. Previously, sailors considered them a good sign. Today, it is explained as a crown discharge. Sometimes they can be seen even on airplanes in turbulence. London, 1940s. A boy is calmly playing next to a sign that says, "Caution, unexploded bomb." Such scenes were common during and after the Blitz, a series of German bombings. The residents are used to danger, and the children are used to living among the ruins. The war was going on, but childhood continued. The photo shows the witch circles in the Namib Desert, Namibia. These perfectly round spots without vegetation can reach 15 meters in diameter and stretch for hundreds of kilometers. For a long time, they were considered a mystery. Their origin was associated with lizards, gases, and even aliens. Today, scientists are inclined to believe that the circles are the result of plants fighting for water in an arid climate, a natural phenomenon that is still controversial. The photo shows a rare historical curiosity: a British soldier on a zebra crossing an obstacle. The picture was taken at the beginning of the 20th century. Attempts to tame zebras were made in Africa. They were considered as an alternative to horses because of their resistance to local diseases. But zebras turned out to be too stubborn and wild for mass use. The photo shows participants in a dance show or a gymnastics group, probably from the 1930s and 40s. The girls lined up in a perfect line, creating a spectacular pattern with a synchronized pose. Such shots were often made for billboards or magazines. USA, the beginning of the 20th century. An immigrant family from Europe poses on Ellis Island, the main entry point to America. 9 children and parents in simple clothes with numbers on their chests, a sign of official registration. Such families dreamed of a new life, leaving poverty and wars. The photo shows New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, 2005. Flooded streets, destroyed roads, and entire neighborhoods underwater. This is one of the most devastating floods in the history of the United States. The reason was the breakthrough of the dams, which could not withstand the pressure. The city was almost completely paralyzed, and thousands of residents were cut off from help. The picture became a symbol of the disaster and the subsequent criticism of the authorities for their slow reaction. In the photo is actress Sharon Tate, an icon of the 1960s. Her style, smile, and charisma made her a symbol of that era. She starred in films, shone on red carpets, and became a muse for many. Her life tragically ended in 1969, but Sharon's image still remains one of the most recognizable in Hollywood history. An abandoned roller coaster hidden in a thick fog. It was deserted, quiet, as if time had frozen. The metal has rusted, the grass has swallowed up the rails. Once there was laughter here, now there is only an alarming silence. A gloomy, swampy landscape in the heartland of Russia, hidden under a dense fog. A lone figure in a gas mask seemed to have emerged from the exclusion zone. The half-flooded house, dead trees, and the silence of the crows. Everything seemed frozen in post-apocalyptic silence. A soldier in camouflage feeds a small boy against a background of sandbags. Judging by the shape and setting, this is a military conflict zone, probably the Middle East or Africa, the 1990s. The child's look is trust. The soldier's expression is caring. 1940s, Muscle Beach, California. Abby Stockton is the first woman to lift a barbell in public. She trained among men, performed at power shows, and became an icon of women's bodybuilding long before it became fashionable. The photo shows the crew of the B-29 Enola Gay bomber that dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. The picture was taken during the parade in the USA. The plaque on the Jeep highlights their involvement in one of the most controversial operations in history. The First World War. A medical dog with a medical bag delivers bandages to the front line. These dogs found the wounded, brought medical supplies, and even pulled fighters out from under fire. The photo shows a real hero without a weapon who saved more than one life. Egypt, 1941. Scottish soldiers of the British Army march at the pyramids of Giza during the Second World War. Bagpipes, kilts, and military discipline are set against the background of ancient stones, the symbol of the clash of epochs, a 1,000-year history, and the global conflict of the 20th century in one frame. Paris, 1944. A woman is attacked in the street for having an affair with a German soldier. After the liberation of France, there were thousands of such public punishments: beatings, shaving of hair, disgrace in front of the crowd. This was considered a cleansing of betrayal. USA, 1991. A girl poses in front of an impending tornado in Oklahoma. The picture went viral long before the internet. Without fear, without haste. One shot in which beauty and madness meet in the clear air before the storm. New York, 1920s. Female stock exchange operators update quotes manually by checking the telegraph tape. Before computers, it was high, precision, fast, and almost exclusively women's work. America's financial heart is in the hands of those who have never received front page recognition. USA, 1943. A soldier is covered with kisses before being sent to the front. There are lipstick marks on her face, and smiling girls in the background. A classic World War II scene. War tomorrow, fun now. New York, 1956. Pilot Larry Walters landed a single-seat plane right in Manhattan due to lack of fuel. The takeoff was legal, but the landing was not. The police fined him, and a crowd gathered to watch the plane being disassembled in the middle of the street. 2 retro shaving kits, Schick and Gillette, 1940-50s. Metal razors, leather zippered cases, and packages with blades. Such kits were taken on the road, in service, and used for years. A symbol of men's style before the era of plastic and disposable. Las Vegas, the 1960s. In front of the Sands Hotel is the legendary Rat Clan: Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop. They ruled show business, performed at night, and drank until morning. It was the golden age of Vegas: style, jazz, and absolute charisma. August 1961, ice legends of the USSR. The nuclear icebreaker, Lenin, leads the Arctic icebreaker, Ermak, the oldest in the world, symbolic scene. The latest technologies pave the way for the past. The red flag is in the wind, the ice is breaking under the steel hull. An era in which the romance of Arctic exploration met with the power of engineering. The photo shows an antique hand-washing machine with a spin shaft, late 19th, early 20th century. The wooden drum, metal handle, and squeezing rollers were all operated manually. This technique was in every home before the advent of electric washing machines. Italy, 1944. American soldiers in the trenches of World War II drink Coca-Cola. The company supplied the army en masse, turning the drink into a symbol of home and moral support. Even on the front line, a bottle of Coca was a breath of normalcy amid the chaos of war. This is not a ghost ship or a set from a TV series. This is a real Drakkar, a Viking burial ship discovered in Gokstad, Norway, in 1880. It lay in the ground for more than 1,000 years and was part of the burial of the leader. Even after centuries, the look of his nose inspires respect. In front of you is a stereoscope, an analog of a home 3D cinema of the late 19th century. You insert a card with 2 almost identical photos, look through the lenses, and get a 3-dimensional image. That's how we used to travel around the world without leaving our homes. In the photo, Martin Van Buren Bates and his wife Anna Swan, one of the tallest people of the 19th century. He is 232 centimeters, she is 241 centimeters. Their wedding in 1871 was a real event, and the furniture for the house had to be custom made. The photo shows a street cigarette saleswoman in a uniform and a box with a belt, a typical scene of America in the 1940s. Such girls carried tobacco products, chewing gum or sweets on the streets, in cinemas and nightclubs. It was one of the few jobs available to young women in the service industry at that time. This is one of the first manually operated vacuum cleaners, created at the beginning of the 20th century. To remove the dust, it was necessary to swing the lever up and down, creating a vacuum. It was hard to work with it, but at the time, it was considered a technical miracle and was expensive. Only the rich had such devices. Vintage soda vending machine in a village store in the USA. The boy has just taken out a 7-Up bottle and is already taking a sip. Next to it is an advertisement with the caption, "Drink slowly." The atmosphere is pure 1940s America. In the photo, a woman tries on a crinoline in Victorian England, circa the 1860s. This rigid frame made of whalebone and steel turned the dress into a magnificent dome, fashionable but extremely inconvenient attribute of the era. The photo shows inventor Julius Martzscaler on his experimental rotopede, created in the 1960s. Instead of ordinary wheels, there are rotating spheres that provide movement in any direction. The car was revolutionary, but too complex for mass production. The photo shows a butcher in a suit with a cow mask, probably the beginning of the 20th century. Such a mask was used as an element of advertising a butcher shop or a circus production. Today it looks ominous, but then it was perceived more as a joke or a theatrical image. The photo shows a rare case of atavism. The man has a rudimentary tail caused by a violation of embryonic development. The picture was taken at the end of the 19th century, presumably for a medical journal or an anthropological collection. Such photos have been used as evidence for the theory of evolution and have been studied in the context of vertebrate development. A night shot from an abandoned mental hospital. One man is sitting in front of a blinking TV, the other is standing by the window. An empty room, a metal chair, dim lights. Everything conveys an atmosphere of isolation and anxiety. Frozen ski lift in the mountains of Sweden. Chairs, cables, and supports are wrapped in ice and snow so tightly that you hardly recognize the structure. The harsh winter has created real ice sculptures against the background of clouds and mountains. Group photo of British colonialists and local hunters against the skin of dead tigers. India, 1905. A symbol of power and dominance, tiger hunting was then considered a prestigious pastime among the nobility, without thinking about the consequences for nature. Three sailors are flirting with a girl on Hollywood Boulevard. Los Angeles, 1992. The street scene captured by photographer Gregory Hinsdale reflects the atmosphere of freedom, play, and style of the early 90s on the iconic Avenue of Stars. Young British women enjoy milkshakes in a cafe. Great Britain, 1954. The atmosphere of serenity and stylish femininity of the post-war years is in every look and every gesture. Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro on set in the 1970s, the moment when the great era of American cinema was born. Their union gave the world films like Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, which became icons of the new Hollywood and exemplars of powerful acting and directing power. The priest blesses the pilot and his airplane before a combat flight, a common practice during the First World War. In the photo, France 1915, when airplanes were just beginning to change the course of the war, and faith and technology were walking hand in hand. The photo shows an old ice picker. The sharp central spike pierced into the block of ice, and the side hooks fixed it, allowing it to hold and break the block apart. Such devices were actively used before the advent of electric refrigerators. The photo shows an early model of a professional camera with a powerful magnesium flash, 1931. The three glass lamps on top contain magnesium foil, which flashed with blinding bright light when shooting. Such outbreaks were one-time events and were often accompanied by loud bangs and smoke. The illustration shows a marital duel described in 15th century German judicial manuscripts. The husband fought from the pit, limited in movement and with his hand tied, holding a baton. The wife was allowed to use a bag of stones and move around the arena. Such an equal fight resolved disputes, including accusations of treason. A girl in worn clothes clutches a paper bag and looks longingly at the bakery window. The photo was taken in London after the Second World War, at a time when food was still being given out on cards. In her gaze, there is a childhood dream of sweets and an adult reality of deprivation. Three women pose among bulky looms in a factory in England, early 20th century. Their working day lasted up to 14 hours in the noise, dust, and dangerous machinery. Despite their fatigue, there is determination and pride in their work in their eyes. The photo shows a collection of bronze tokens used in the brothels of the Wild West of the USA in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Such tokens were exchanged for services in establishments like Dottie's House, Hungry Eye Saloon, or Uncle Sam Hotel. They were often decorated with playful inscriptions and served as a kind of currency in the world of entertainment and sin of that time. In the photo is a Japanese Maiko, a geisha student, Kyoto, circa the 1920s. In her hands is a Suzumi drum used in traditional music and theater. Her outfit is not just a kimono, but a complex system of symbols reflecting age, status, and season. The image shows the so called split debt sticks, or tally sticks, used in Europe from ancient times until the 19th century. It was a reliable way to keep records of debts before the distribution of paper receipts in banks. Each notch indicated the amount, and splitting the stick provided protection against counterfeiting. Both parts matched perfectly, like a puzzle. The photo shows a giant stone Mayan head found in Guatemala. This is a rare example of a monumental sculpture from the pre-Columbian era, presumably depicting a mythological character or ruler. Such heads were hand-carved from monolithic blocks and decorated with symbols reflecting cosmogony, power, and connection with the gods. The uniqueness of this artifact lies in its preservation and level of detail. The size of the sculpture suggests that it was part of a sacred complex or ritual center. The photo shows a defensive ring, popular at the beginning of the 20th century. It looked like an ordinary piece of jewelry, but if necessary, the top cover could be moved, revealing sharp spikes for self-defense. Such rings were worn by women, street vendors, and even spies. A sudden injection could save a life. Englishmen on the beach, late 19th century. Wearing top hats and bathing trunks was considered fashionable and eccentric back then. A dust storm over a city in Oklahoma, 1935. This was the peak of the Dust Bowl disaster, a series of devastating storms caused by drought and unwise plowing of the prairies. The mechanism in the photo is a clockwork canary from the 19th century. A fur and a whistle with an air chamber are hidden inside. When launched, it emits sounds imitating the singing of a real bird. Two girls with long braids filming on film cameras in London, 1930s. The photo conveys the atmosphere of the first mass walks with cameras, when photography became accessible to ordinary people. The photo shows the chatelaine, a popular accessory from the Victorian era. It was worn on a belt to keep the most necessary little things at hand: keys, scissors, a notebook, a lorgnette, and even a mini perfume bottle. A convenient women's pocket before the appearance of handbags. In the photo, the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, the first jazz group in the history of the United States, consisting entirely of women, including African Americans. Founded in 1937, the band gained popularity in the 1940s, performing on military bases and in halls across the country, despite racial segregation. London, the 1980s. An elderly woman is talking to a group of punks sitting by the side of the road. Bright mohawks, riveted jackets, and the calm pose of the old lady create a visual contrast. It is unclear whether there is an argument or just a curious dialogue, but the scene has become a symbol of the clash of epochs and views. In the Middle Ages, animals were indeed judged like humans. This engraving shows a pig accused of murdering a child. She was officially tried, with the judge, the witnesses, and the verdict. Such trials were not uncommon. Even chickens, cows, and cats were tried, despite their inability to speak up in their own defense. This is a 1950s TV presenter with an NBC microphone. The photo was taken in an era when color TV was just becoming fashionable. Rare photo. Jewish soldiers of the Kaiser's army celebrate Hanukkah right on the front line of the Eastern Front. An improvised altar with a menorah and the inscription Hanukkah 1916 stands in the snow. Despite the horrors of the First World War, traditions were respected even in the trenches. This engraving depicts a garden hermit, a strange fashion of the 16th century among aristocrats. Rich owners hired a man to live in a specially built cave, not to wash, not to cut his hair, and to pose as a wise hermit. His presence served as a living decoration, emphasizing the supposedly philosophical depth of the owner. Soldiers of the French colonial troops received food from the nurses of the American Red Cross during the First World War. The top photo is the original, the bottom photo is a digital colorization. The scene conveys a moment of respite when, despite the war, people on both sides of the counter are smiling. The photo shows two women in the early 20th century posing by a car. One of them is holding a gun, the other is driving, smiling. Back then, such pictures symbolized independence and courage. Women mastered cars, wore practical clothes, and were not afraid to assert themselves in a world where men still dominated. The image is an 18th century caricature that makes fun of the sad reality. Psychiatric hospitals often turned into a show. Visitors did not come to help the sick, but to have fun. For money, you could not only look at the patients, but also tease them, or even beat them. It was called an excursion into madness, and it was considered the norm. The photo shows General Tom Tam and his wife Lavinia, the stars of Barnum's circus. Their wedding in the 19th century was discussed all over America, and touring made them millionaires. This rare photo with a child shows that there was also a private, quiet life behind the scene. The USSR, the 1970s. A polar explorer treats a wild polar bear with condensed milk. There are cubs nearby. The photo seems fantastic, but it's the result of a long trust. Futuristic in appearance, this steam locomotive is the New York Central Mercury, 1936, one of the first examples of streamlined design, streamlined shape, sleek body, and speed, all for the sake of competing with cars. In those years, the train looked like a car from the future. A huge manta ray caught off the coast of Karachi in 1933. This is one of the largest stingrays in the world. The span of the fins can exceed 9 meters. Despite their formidable appearance, manta rays are absolutely harmless to humans. A unique globe-shaped phone given to Joseph Stalin in 1949 for his 70th birthday. The case is made of metal with an engraved world map, and the disc is embedded directly into the equator, a symbol of power, control, and global influence. Women in blue uniforms sit in tight rows and stack pages. This is a shot from a printing house in the middle of the 20th century. Before automation, this was how magazines and catalogs were created. It's amazing how much work and precision it took to get each issue put together correctly. This is a 19th century powder tester, a device for measuring the power of gunpowder. After the arc was fired, the recoil force was recorded, and the charge quality was determined on a scale. The copy was made in Belgium and was used by gunsmiths. Photo of an Indian couple in front of a wigwam, late 19th century. The man is holding a saber in his hands, a symbol of prestige, probably a trophy. The clothes are decorated with beads and fur. A disconcertingly huge statue of Pharaoh Ramesses II found in Memphis, Egypt. The photo was taken at the beginning of the 20th century. The people at the foot, archaeologists and locals, demonstrate the scale of the ancient colossus lying on the ground after thousands of years under the sand. This is an ophthalmoscope, a rare anatomical device of the 19th century, with which doctors and students demonstrated the work of the eye muscles. A wooden model with ropes shows how the eyeballs move and how they are controlled by muscles. This layout was used in universities before the advent of detailed videography. The gold vault at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Each bar weighs about 12.5 kilos and costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Special shoes protect against injury if the ingot falls on your foot. This is one of the largest gold vaults in the world, and only a select few have access to it. Engineers pose in front of the massive propellers and rudder of the RMS Mauritania ocean liner in dry dock. The photo was taken around 1907. At one time, it was the fastest passenger ship in the world, and one of the engineering wonders of the early 20th century. The scale is striking even today. The device in the photo is Dr. George Merriweather's Storm Predictor, created in the 1850s. There was a leech inside each of the 12 bottles. When the atmospheric pressure changed before the storm, the leeches began to climb up, touch the tendril of the whale's bone, and the hammer struck the bell. The more bells, the closer the storm gets. This living barometer even predicted the weather more accurately than the instruments of that time. On January 30th, 1969, the last live performance of the Beatles took place on the roof of the Apple Records headquarters in London. Without an announcement, amid the noise of the city and the surprised passers-by, they played a short set that went down in history as the rooftop concert. After 42 minutes, the police interrupted the performance due to noise complaints. That's how the legend ended its era, from above. The Soviet tear-off calendar of 1969, specially published for women. Every day there is a new page with useful tips, patterns, and illustrations of fashionable clothing models. The photo shows an example, January 8th with an offer of work outfits. The photo shows mistletoe sellers on the streets of Paris, circa the 1920s and 30s. Mistletoe was considered a symbol of good luck and love, especially during the Christmas holidays. Men dressed entirely in branches created a vivid and memorable image, attracting customers to the festive product. The photo shows the motorcade of U.S. President John F. Kennedy during a visit to Dallas, Texas on November 22, 1963. This is one of the last photos taken minutes before his murder. Crowds of people greet the president, unaware that a tragic event will soon happen that will shock the whole world. The photo shows a rare moment after a massive snowstorm in Scotland, 1947. Houses, cars, and streets are completely buried under a layer of ice and snow. The winter of 1947 became one of the harshest in British history. Temperatures dropped to 20 degrees, trains were stuck, electricity was cut off, and food was delivered by sleigh. The eruption of Mount Sinabung in Indonesia, 2014. A huge cloud of ash rises into the sky, creating a frightening and majestic sight at the same time. In the foreground is a motorcyclist in a hurry to leave the danger zone. Sinabung has woken up after 400 years of hibernation and has become one of the most active volcanoes in the region. A huge statue of Ramesses II in the Temple of Abu Simbel, Egypt. This colossus was carved out of the rock around the 13th century BC and guarded the entrance to the great temple dedicated to the gods and the pharaoh himself. In the photo, a man is standing on the knee of a statue, which highlights the incredible scale of ancient Egyptian architecture. The photo shows a soldier in Chechnya in the 1990s, standing by a lonely piano among the ruins. There's war all around, dirt, destruction, and suddenly music. He played a few chords to forget himself, to feel alive. The photo shows the so-called blackout bulb from the late 1930s. Such lamps were used in Great Britain during the Second World War for dimming. Their weak diffused light was not visible from the air and helped hide the cities from German bombers. Confession in the open air, Italy, the 1950s. The priest listens to the confession of an elderly woman, while two other parishioners wait their turn, clutching prayer books in their hands. Children cool off at blocks of ice. New York, summer of 1912. Before the advent of air conditioners, chunks of ice were an escape from the heat. They were laid out right on the streets, and children ran from all the yards to touch the coolness at least for a moment. A simple joy in the midst of a stuffy city. Simple joy in the midst of a boy with a bandaged cheek writes the word liar near the sign, Painless Dentist. The beginning of the XDX century. Humor and pain are in one shot. Apparently, the appointment with this doctor turned out to be not at all as painless as the sign promised. This is the so-called lowrider limo in extreme performance. The ultra-low slung limousine, created as an art project or a show car, practically merges with the road. Such cars are not designed for everyday driving, but rather a demonstration of technical skill and outrage. They are often based on American cars from the 1960s and 1970s, and are equipped with an air suspension system that allows lifting the body for movement. The photo shows a 19th century mechanical alarm system designed to protect the house from intruders. The device was placed under the door from the inside, propping it with a metal pin. When trying to open the door from the outside, the pin fell and hit the built-in bell, creating a loud sound and notifying the owners of an attempted break-in, a simple but effective precursor to modern security systems. The photo shows a touching moment from the Paralympic Games of the 1980s. An athlete celebrates his victory, and next to him is a smiling Arnold Schwarzenegger. He actively supported the Special Olympics and personally congratulated the participants. This frame has become a symbol of support, dignity, and fortitude. Soviet soldiers on the background of the destroyed Brandenburg Gate, Berlin, May 1945, a symbol of the surrender of Nazi Germany and the end of World War II in Europe. Behind him is the IS-2 tank, one of the most powerful at that time. The calmness of the soldiers in front of the lenses is a contrast to recent battles. After the end of hostilities, the technique found a new use. A British Universal Carrier armored personnel carrier pulls a plow into a field in France. Local farmers are using the remaining military equipment to rebuild agriculture, a story about how even weapons of war can serve peace. An elderly woman proudly poses with a fishing rod and a huge catfish by the river. Her apron is stained and her face is tired and contented. A scene from the Victorian era. A dentist pulls out a tooth without anesthesia, while an assistant, possibly a child, holds the patient's head with a belt. Pain, panic, screams. This is not a cure, but a torture. This is what dentistry looked like before the advent of anesthesia. Rough, direct, frightening. Western USA, the end of the 19th century. The photo shows a typical street in a border town. A butcher shop, a saloon, a restaurant, and a real estate agency in wooden buildings. Men in aprons and hats, a dog at the butcher's feet. Here is a historical photo of the operating room at the beginning of the 20th century. Here, doctors operated in natural light, under the gaze of students on the balcony. The architecture, lighting, and cleanliness of the room reflect the progressive standards of medicine of its time before the advent of modern sterile conditions. The photo shows a street scene in New York at the beginning of the 20th century, when the city was experiencing traffic chaos. Horse-drawn carts, trams, carts, street vendors, and crowds of people created almost insurmountable traffic jams. This is a vivid illustration of how the metropolis lived before the advent of traffic lights and orderly movement. A retro bottle with 7-Up concentrate is a syrup for factory bottling, not a ready-made drink. It was used only internally, as explicitly stated on the label. Pianelle, or zoccoli, high-top shoes, popular among women of the ERASED 17th centuries, especially in Venice. They were worn over ordinary shoes to protect dresses from street dirt, and the height of the platform symbolized wealth and social status. The photo shows a telephone operator from the beginning of the 20th century. Women played a key role in early telephone communications, manually connecting calls using switches and cables. This job required concentration, good memory, and courtesy. A U.S. postman collects correspondence from a street mailbox using a 3-wheeled mail bicycle. Such tools were used in the early 20th century to deliver letters quickly in urban areas. 2 girls near a neatly molded snow house with a chimney and windows. Such snow-covered buildings were a favorite winter entertainment for children at the beginning of the 20th century. The girl poses in a corset with an extremely narrow waist, a typical beauty ideal of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Such corsets not only shaped the figure, but also often caused harm to health. A carnet is a ballroom notebook of the 19th, early 20th century, in which ladies wrote the names of the gentlemen opposite each dance. They were often decorated with ribbons and pencils, and became a kind of diary of social life. A column of gentlemen on penny farthings is a popular type of bicycle of the late 19th century. The large front wheel provided speed, but made landing and braking extremely uncomfortable. Such races were a sign of the status and sports fashion of the era. Mobile bread shop in England, 1920s. The seller delivers fresh bread directly to the homes, offering customers to choose a loaf from the basket. It's comfortable, fragrant, and without queues. A 19th century hair dryer. Boiling water was poured inside, and the hot surface helped to dry the hair in a few minutes. A simple alternative to electricity, and with a massage effect. A rare photo from the beginning of the 20th century. A woman practicing punches on a punching bag in an ancient gym. Such simulators were considered progressive means of promoting health, even for ladies. New York, 1940s. Workers repair the famous clock at Grand Central Station. Downstairs, as usual, passengers check their schedules at the information desk, the heart of a bustling metropolis in the era of steam locomotives. England, 1933. A chimpanzee in a driver's cap driving an old car is a stage scene for Life magazine, a satire or a circus show, but the spectacle was definitely memorable for the audience. A group of lumberjacks in California around 1900 poses next to a giant sawn tree. Such scenes are a reminder of the scale of sequoia deforestation in the era of industrialization. Oxen and heavy saws were used for transportation. The work was exhausting and dangerous. World War II photo. British Jeep. Willys makes a jump with an anti-tank cannon attached. The image demonstrates the maneuverability and lightness of the Allies' weapons, which relied on mobility even in rough terrain.